So it's Max Verstappen on the pole for the championship showdown for the season finale. I did say yesterday in the video how good he looked. I was a little bit concerned. I did that video quite quickly. I was a bit concerned later when I read the quotes from Max saying, oh, the long run pace wasn't that good, the car's this, the car's that. I was thinking, really? It didn't look that way. And I think it's just Max saying that. You know, he doesn't really want to get too excited until things actually happen. Because he did look good yesterday on full run, on long runs, and in terms of the setup of the car, as I said. And they just refined it and improved it a little bit today, and the track got quicker. And I thought the best moment of qualifying actually was Q2, when Max did his run. He did 2 unbelievable laps on used softs, just saving 2 new sets, obviously, for Q3. And he was just unbelievable. He was P2. But the nerve, the amazing nerve of Red Bull and Max just to sit in the garage in the last run when everybody's out on new softs, and they predicted the cutoff point to be 22.9 and Max had done a 22.7. Okay, but things like that can go wrong, and this is a championship finale, and they just sat in the garage. I mean, Lando and Oscar were both out there. They'd done quick times as well, but they were both out on track, going around slowly, just waiting to see what might happen. Actually, not within the Delta time as it happened, but they seem to get away with that all the time. But it did mean that the soft tyres that were on the McLarens for the first run in Q3 were a little bit scrubbed. And therefore, Max did that amazing lap at the beginning of Q3 in his first run on a new set. And I think that was just like, ooh, this is serious lap time. And McLaren just couldn't get near it on the second run when they put the new softs on. And Max, unbelievably, I think, because you're on the limit, you're on the absolute limit, or he's on the absolute limit, then went quicker in every sector on his second lap. It was still the same overall lap time at 22.2, but it was quicker in every sector on the second run, which is unbelievably impressive. Normally, you don't get one sector quite right, but he just nailed it. Absolutely superb. McLaren looks like they took off a bit of wing overnight. I said yesterday that Max had a big top speed advantage over the McLarens, and that was an interesting thing. And I said, would McLaren keep that going into Saturday? And they didn't. They obviously took wing out of the car, and they've sort of halved the difference now. It was still 332, 331 to 327, 328, but it's a sort of raceable thing. But the interesting thing there is that the McLarens, to my eye, looked a little bit more skittish with that less downforce on the rear. And we saw Lando have a couple of moments. We saw Oscar have a couple of moments. And yeah, overall, in terms of it's incredible, really, isn't it? To finish on a circuit like Abu Dhabi, which is a pretty good test of car performance in terms of the combination of corners, the top speed, everything there. And the Red Bull, if you saw this now as a snapshot, you've just come down from Mars, you'd say, oh yeah, that's got to be the best car in Formula One, the best efficient aerodynamic package in Formula One, very quick around the lap, very quick on the straight. So where's this car been all year? Where was it for half the year anyway? Because in reality now, that Max could well have a really good race tomorrow and win the race. Oscar Piastri could probably make a very good start from the clean side of the grid. Maybe he muscles into P2, or maybe Lando lets him into P2 in the first corner. And Lando cruises around, finishes third behind Max and Oscar, and wins the World Championship, which is Red Bull having let Max down sufficient number of times with this car. And yet here they are at Abu Dhabi, with the RB21 looking like a car that has never lost a Grand Prix. It's incredible how this season has gone up and down like that, particularly from Red Bull's perspective. And there were no changes to the Red Bull between Qatar and here, between Vegas and Qatar anyway. So what is going on? It comes down, as I said several videos ago, it really comes down to the black art of getting the Pirellis in the window. And here at Abu Dhabi, as we saw yesterday, as we saw today, Red Bull are not having too much trouble getting the Pirellis to work, looking really, really good. I think one of the interesting things now that Max is on the pole and we have the 2 McLarens behind him. Then we have George Russell in the Mercedes. Then we have Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. I don't think Charles is going to be able to do much to play around with results towards the podium, assuming all things stay as they are, the status quo remains, because he's on the limit getting that lap time out of the car. And his time management was not brilliant when he was on his fuel run anyway in FP3. He didn't look like he was too focused on time management anyway. So I don't imagine he's going to be great on full tanks. But George doesn't look bad at all in the Mercedes. Remember, he's P4, but it is a Mercedes, and McLaren do have a Mercedes engine. And I wonder whether there will be any instructions for George not to get between the McLarens and Max more than he needs to, and to respect the championship, if that's the right way of phrasing it. I hope there are not, but bear in mind, if you are Mercedes, potentially, I guess you would want to have a McLaren-Mercedes as driver, as a champion, rather than a Red Bull Honda driver. Is that fair comment? Maybe not. Maybe it's not that political. Maybe Mercedes are irritated by McLaren, by this upstart customer team that's been beating them all year. But potentially, in the blue chip world of corporate car manufacturers, maybe a McLaren-Mercedes victory for Lando Norris is better than a Max Verstappen victory for Red Bull Honda. Even though it's not a manufacturer's championship thing, it may be that George doesn't play a role. But knowing George, knowing how competitive he is, if he has a run at the McLarens, I'm pretty sure he'll go for it. In the same way that he semi-jokingly asked to be sent out behind Max in Q3, because for sure Max will want to give him a tow so he can be quicker than the McLarens. So we'll see. As for Lewis Hamilton in the other Ferrari, I hate to say it, it's just painful to say it now. It didn't get out of Q1 again. It was just like so predictable. Ferrari ran mediums tyres at the beginning of Q1, which has looked odd. I suppose they're just getting the car sort of hot and ready on the mediums, and then really getting set up. They're running two new sets of softs on Lewis's car, one new set of softs on Leclerc's car in Q1. And Charles immediately responded and got up to 5th place, no problem at all. Lewis barely could do anything. And just, he messed it up in the last sector, turned 12, and then he was too quick. 13, 14 ran out of road around there. But, this is the 7 times world champion who went into Ferrari, in theory, hungry. And look, finishes the year not getting out of Q1. It's very sad to see. So just to recap then, Max, that brilliant 22.2, which he did twice, and he went slightly quicker, as I say, on the second lap in every sector. Lando and Oscar both did 22.4, but Lando slightly quicker in the first 2 sectors, Oscar slightly quicker in the 3rd sector. And it was Lando that got the nod into P2, but he is on the dirty side of the grid, as I say. George Russell P4, and Fernando Alonso, very good P6 for Aston Martin Mercedes. Let's hope he has a decent race for a change. I keep saying that. Lance Stroll just got out of Q1 in the other Merc. Great job too by Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber Ferrari, 22.9. Esteban Ocon, 22.9. Isaac Hadjar, 23.0. Was unbelievably close, and Yuki Tsunoda got into Q3 as well, in what could well be his last ever Grand Prix. Oliver Behrman just failed to make it out of Q2. Carlos Sainz likewise, Liam Lawson, and Kimi Antonelli said the back end got away from him, qualifying P14, not getting out of Q2 as well. And the other final point to make is that McLaren, oddly, are the only team to have 2 new sets of hard tyres going into the race tomorrow and 1 set of new mediums. Everybody else has 2 new sets of mediums and 1 new set of hards. And the medium looks very good, and I suspect that's because McLaren want to be as conservative as they can in this all-important race, and they may be thinking if there's a safety car quite early on and everybody comes in, assuming they do come in for the safety car on this occasion, and they put the hards on, at least they got another new set of hards to get them through to the end of the race. A nice conservative approach. But of course, the medium is going to be quicker, and probably the quickest way to win this race is going to be an easy one-stop medium hard, or maybe even medium soft combination. The other thing worth watching, I think, will be how Max runs the race, assuming he comes out of turn 1 and he's got the lead and it looks, if he's under control, he's got the race under control, is how quickly he then runs the race. Because although normally you'd want to just, whatever he normally does, 5-6 seconds over a period of time, and then eventually with the pit stops it increases to 8, 10, 12 seconds. But in this occasion, it behoves Max really to keep the field as bunched as much as possible, because the more traffic and the more debris and the more turbulence that McLaren are in theory, the more their tyres are going to go off. So what Max would like, I guess, would be for the field to be tightly bunched for at least the first 10, 15 laps on full tanks to see if he can get damage done to the McLaren tyres at that point, and then hope that potentially they might come in earlier than planned and then come out in traffic. That might be one strategy that I mean, it's hard to strategize other teams, but that's one thing that Red Bull probably are looking at, I would imagine, in terms of how this race could be won. Not that Max has got much control over it, but that's one area where he could maybe have some sort of influence, let's put it that way. Obviously, Oscar has a different task, and there doesn't seem to be much talk about how Oscar could win the championship. But don't forget, he could still emerge from tomorrow as world champion. A lot of things would have to change, but he could, and he's still in the running. And he didn't run the car in FP1 yesterday. It was a scrappy back end to the afternoon, but he looked pretty good today, just about up to speed, a little bit ahead of where he's been recently if you take Qatar out of it. But I still think maybe he lost a fraction of momentum by missing out yesterday, and maybe that showed in his qualifying result. But having said that, all of that is on the clean side of the grid, so he's probably not complaining about that at all now. So there we are. Quick word about REC watches, which you can read about in the description below this video. You can pre-order the yet to be released but beautiful Bullet DNA watch and Datsun 240Z racer, as in John Morton, Peter Brock, early 70s, countless wins in America. Watch DNA from both those cars in those watches, and you can pre-order them now. Use the code word Peter, P-E-T-R, and get an additional discount. Big thanks to REC watches then, to Jetcraft, to Track Ninja, and to OEM Exclusive. The big finale tomorrow. Of course, we'll be doing a video straight after the race. I'll also be talking to Mark Slade to get the race engineer's perspective as well, so don't miss that. Take care. See you then.